It's a role that's seen the actor playing it tipped as the next James Bond. But the lead character in the BBC's hugely popular crime drama Luther has left the network's head of creative diversity both shaken and stirred. She claims he isn't, quote, black enough to be real.
When it first came out, everybody loved the fact that Idris Elba is in their really strong black character lead. Well, actually, he doesn't have any black friends. He doesn't eat any Caribbean food. This doesn't feel authentic.
When you see groups through the prism of stereotypes, this is the insulting outcome. Would she prefer to see Luther dunk basketball hoops at the end of every scene?
Luther follows the exploits of Detective Chief Inspector John Luther as he attempts to solve brutal murders in and around London. The show's 5 series ran between 2010 and 2019. Now, the comments about its diversity come as the BBC pledges to spend £100 million on making more, quote, diverse and inclusive television. The measure will include 3 tests, with programmes needing to meet 2 of them to pass. Well, I'm delighted to welcome onto the programme now political analysts Anthony Brian Logan and also Anthony Rogers Wright. For their take, gentlemen, it's a pleasure. Anthony Brian, can we kick off with you? Maybe the diversity chief didn't word it quite right, but is there anything wrong with seeing more authenticity on screen when it comes to a character's background?
Well, I don't really know what she wants as far as quote unquote authenticity. I mean, the show is not really about him being black specifically. You know, it's about Luther and it's about a whole thing. It's not really him in his everyday life and what it means to be black. I mean, there may be shows that show that kind of life and get deep into the details of what it means to be quote unquote black. This show might not be that. So what she may need is an entirely different show to achieve that goal that she has in her mind.
Anthony Rogers Wright, you're agreeing with most of that, I think. Just to put it to you, walking, talking stereotypes, is that really what we want to see? You know, I'm Irish. If I'm in a film, do I have to down a pint of Guinness and wear a red wig? Like, we're bordering on the ridiculous here, aren't we?
No, and mark it down. This is, Brother Anthony and I have been on this show many times and not in agreement. Mark it down. We are in full alignment today. I think that the statements were extremely...
We'll see how long that lasts.
Well, extremely clumsy, but I'm sure Brother Anthony remembers when The Cosby Show came out. There were a lot of people saying the same thing because it featured a family with a black lawyer and a black doctor. And some people were saying, oh, that's the joke, as if this country, the United States of America, hasn't seen waves of successful and black people who have excelled in scholarships. So, I would agree 100%. This idea that blackness is monolithic is very, very dangerous, and it could lead to more stereotypes, as you were saying. It was very, very, very feckless, and I really hope that the BBC looks into this more. And I think that the diversity counselor does need to answer some more questions to the public, because a lot of people were unfortunately insulted by those very languorous comments.
Anthony Brian, content makers, they've faced criticism in the past for using stereotypes. Now they're criticized for not using them. It's hard for them, isn't it, when pressure comes from above?
I mean, you can't really win when you start to play this game, when you try to appease certain groups, because people are always going to be upset. Okay, if you want to play to the stereotypes, like the commenter was saying in one of those tweets, okay, is he going to play basketball every episode and get into a random pickup game after his shift? I mean, if they do things like that, that's offensive. If they don't show him doing things like that, then that's offensive. At a certain point, just have good programming and let that be that. And going back to the Cosby Show right quick, there may have been a minority that said that wasn't realistic. That's not really how the black family is. But the truth is that the Cosby Show in the 80s in the USA was the most popular show on television. It didn't matter, black, white, whatever. It was a great show. So have a great show is going to do well regardless of all these little things that people try to put in there after the fact.
Yeah, it's sold very well around the world as well. Anthony Rogers Wright, isn't it a good thing about Luther that his skin colour doesn't define his identity? You know, the greatest characters in art, as you've just been going through, they've got nuance, haven't they? They were multifaceted. You know, won't trying to crowbar in stereotypical aspects just end up hurting a show and dilute whatever impact it has?
Well, to Anthony's point earlier, right? It depends on what the show is supposed to depict. In this case, the show Luther depicted the incredible acting prowess of a very good actor in Idris Elba. It was not supposed to be a biopic, right? I could understand if it was supposed to be a show about young Malcolm X, and all young Malcolm X was doing was, hanging out with white people, and it didn't show, the true semblance of his history. But as Anthony said earlier, this is a fictional character. Who it never said in his character description that he was supposed to be so-called black. So I think that we should continue thinking about Luther as the celebration of an exceptional acting career that has been heralded and has gained Mr. Elba, who is also a fellow Sierra Leonean, a whole bunch of accolades. We have to be extremely careful. There were characters like Benson back in the early 80s, that apparently weren't black enough. And again, black people are not monoliths, as Anthony and I can definitely attest to. And this idea that we're going to let Hollywood or anyone else determine what blackness is and what blackness isn't is very pernicious.
He was incredible in The Wire as well, wasn't he? Anthony Bryan, what's your thoughts? Maybe let's widen out the conversation here. What's your thoughts on having a diversity chief at all? In fact, there's two at the BBC. It's two high-paid positions. Is there a fear that in order to warrant such a salary, grievances, well, maybe they have to be found, even if there isn't one? In this case, there's a lot of agreement that there isn't one in the first place. Or does it have an important role to play in a modern, diverse society?
You know what, a phrase I came up with recently is, when you live by the quote unquote woke sword, you're going to die by the woke sword. Because when you go out there and try to have diversity and try to have inclusion, sometimes you just go way over the top. Actually, a lot of times you go way over the top and you try to find things like this. Okay, I'm the diversity chief. I must find things that aren't really quite right. Okay, he's not eating Caribbean food. That's not right. Oh, he doesn't have any black friends. He's not quote unquote black enough. You go so far in your search for diversity, you try to create problems where no problems even exist. So that's kind of this whole thing. BBC wants to be woke and they want to be more inclusive and all this and that. They're going to have these kind of problems come up because at a certain point, you have to create problems in order to solve them to justify your job even existing.
Do you, Anthony, do you think a diversity chief in organizations like this is warranted?
I'm on the fence about it. I mean, I would agree that when woke culture goes too far, it presents something that I call too woke to win. The bottom line is, if we are going to have diversity chiefs, let's make sure we're talking about making sure that there is a good representation of actors, women and men, of what our society looks like right now. The British society has always been a very, very diverse society. This is an island nation that at one point ruled the world. There are Asian people in the UK, Africans, people of Caribbean descent, and of course, white people. I think that I would somewhat agree with Anthony in saying that if there's a character that is written that's supposed to be a certain character, just changing the skin color isn't necessarily a solution. What I would like to see, if we're really going to have diversity chiefs, is a better representation of, say, biblical shows, right? Like, why do we always get white actors to play Jesus of Nazareth, who we know was not a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes? Why is Charlton Heston playing Moses?
Let me put the point to you, Anthony Rogers, right, that we saw recently a white actor apologizing for voicing a hugely popular Indian character, Apu, in The Simpsons cartoon. But there was no similar apology made for voicing the stereotypical Scottish character, groundskeeper Willie, which may be deemed offensive to Scots. Why does it always seem to be one direction of traffic?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that Hank Azaria showed a lot of maturity. And of course, that was engendered, obviously, with the rising anti-Asian American violence that's been happening in the United States. But certainly, it's not just, a racial thing. There are also cultural aspects of it. You could go as far as to say, in the United States, we're talking about mascots right now, the misrepresentation of indigenous people. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish, I think, is also equally offensive, as just depicting Irish folk as people who get get drunk and fight all the time. So I would agree with you that apology was absolutely incomplete. And to Anthony's point, it was trying to kind of latch on to exacerbated woke culture, which is not going to solve problems where we jump on the flashpoints. Oh, I'm sorry for this. It has to be consistent. It has to be a quotidian process so that we get to this idea of equity.
Anthony, Brian, your take on that?
Oh, the whole mascots thing. I mean, I think it's kind of soft, quite frankly. I think it's kind of soft. I mean, it's like, again, it's the woke culture, living by the woke sword, die by the woke sword. I mean, the Redskins, nobody thought that was really a big deal. The logo was drawn by a Native American person. I'm from Virginia originally, and I grew up, you either a Cowboys fan or a Redskins fan. Okay, you got blacks, whites, natives, everybody wearing the Washington Redskins stuff. Now you can't even say Redskins anymore. You got to say Washington football team. I mean, the Fighting Irish, it wasn't really a big deal. I think we've all become a little bit too soft. There's always a caricature that has this race or that voice or this voice. We got to just stop being a little bit too soft, and because the softness is what brings up the Luther thing. Okay, we're so soft about these mascots and things that don't really matter. Then we go way, way over the top and say, okay, if you have a black character, they got to be authentically black. Whatever some random person says is being authentically black because of the soft nature of current modern social justice warrior culture.
Okay. We've got about a minute left. If you want to do a final point, Anthony, Roger's right.
Yeah, I do have to push back on that. I don't think it's appropriate for us as African Americans to opine on how the mascots of indigenous people to the United States impacts them and causes trauma. There were enough people who were concerned about the former mascot of the Washington football team to speak out against it and get it changed. At a time right now when indigenous people are fighting for their sovereignty, for treaties to be upheld in this country that has exhibited years and decades and legacy of genocide. We should not be
and stuff like that. What about that?
We shouldn't be reductive because if
now we done lost Aunt Jemima, we done lost Uncle Ben's, we done lost all that stuff because of that mentality.
There was a team called the Alabama Porch Monkeys. I would be very upset about it, and I believe that our indigenous sisters and brothers would be standing with us in a very necessary and needed Afro-Indigenous solidarity project.
I'm afraid we have to end it there, but it's been very enlightening. Thank you, as always, for coming in the programme and sharing your thoughts. Anthony Rogers Wright and Anthony Brian Logan, both political analysts, speaking to us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.